Welcome to the Sky Commander Flight Brief. It's your mission-ready podcast for drone pilot training and aerial insights across Canada.
From Transport Canada rules to real-world drone ops, we break it down, take you higher, and help you earn your wings. Because here at skycommander.ca, we don't just fly.
It hints there's more to it. It's a masterclass, a deeper level, maybe a philosophy or a community focus, perhaps.
It's definitely intriguing, sets them apart from just, a basic tips show. Skycommander.ca is the obvious next step. Precisely. If you're thinking about flying a drone in Canada, boom, this content is aimed right at you.
Powered by skycommander.ca.
The elite podcast for Canada's drone pilot. Okay, let's get started.
Have you ever found yourself watching a drone, maybe, as it sweeps gracefully over vast landscapes or, navigates the intricate canyons of a city? And it just seems to accomplish these incredibly complex tasks with such effortless ease. It really is a testament to modern engineering.
It really is.
But here's the thing. Behind that smooth, seemingly simple flight, there's a whole universe of critical decisions, deep technical understanding, and some serious regulatory savvy at play.
Yeah, a whole lot going on under the hood.
Exactly. So today we're embarking on a deep dive into what it really takes to fly drones safely and effectively, especially when you're venturing beyond your visual line of sight.
That's exactly where we're headed. Our mission in this deep dive is to unpack the crucial knowledge necessary for advanced drone piloting. We're going to zero in on key concepts like the precision of waypoint navigation, the often overlooked integrity of your GNSS signal, mastering the complexities of Canada's airspace, and importantly, successfully navigating the exciting yet undeniably challenging new regulatory landscape.
It sounds like a lot. Where did you pull the insights from?
Well, we've pulled together insights from a rich stack of expert sources for you. We're talking detailed piloting scenarios, essential regulatory handbooks like Canada's own designated airspace handbook, the DAH.
Ah, the DAH. Crucial.
Absolutely. And even some fascinating historical tidbits and future forecasts that are genuinely, cooler than sci-fi.
Okay, I like the sound of that. So for you, our listener, what does this all boil down to?
Well, think of this deep dive as your ultimate shortcut to truly thinking like a professional drone pilot.
Okay.
We're going to arm you with some surprising facts. Highlight the subtle traps that can catch even the most experienced operators off guard.
The gotchas.
Exactly, the gotchas. And equip you with the essential mental checklists you'll need. Our goal isn't just to help you master these complex operations, but also to confidently navigate the significant upcoming changes that are transforming drone aviation right here in Canada.
So get ready for some serious aha moments because we're about to dive deep into the details.
Let's do it.
Right, let's begin at the absolute bedrock of advanced drone operations, waypoints. We hear this term often, but what exactly are they, and why do they hold such a central role in complex flight?
Okay, so at its core, a waypoint is really just a saved go-to point. Simple as that.
A digital pin on a map.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a very specific set of coordinates, a latitude, a longitude, and crucially an altitude, that when you string them together, define an automated flight path.
Oh, okay.
You can genuinely think of them as the digital breadcrumbs your drone follows, one after the other, to execute a pre-planned mission.
Digital breadcrumbs. I like that analogy. And I find it fascinating that this concept isn't new. It's almost as if drone aviation is, standing on the shoulders of giants. Where do waypoints come from historically?
You're absolutely right. This isn't a drone-specific invention at all. Waypoints trace their lineage directly back to manned aviation.
Right.
For decades, pilots relied on fixed radio beacons like non-directional beacons, NDBs, and VHF omnidirectional ranges, or VORs. These were physical points on the ground that aircraft navigated by.
Okay, old school tech.
Exactly. Drones simply took that foundational concept and swapped those radio signals for the hyper-precise GNSS coordinates we have today.
Makes sense.
This historical context truly underscores how fundamental structured flight paths are, whether you're flying a commercial jetliner or a sophisticated remotely piloted aircraft system or RPAS.
That connection to traditional aviation makes a lot of sense, showing how much cross-pollination there is. So for those of us operating drones, waypoints become the absolute building blocks for any advanced, automated, or especially beyond visual line of sight BLOS operation.
Absolutely fundamental.
And here's a critical point for anyone involved in Canadian drone operations. With the 2025 regulatory changes rapidly approaching, understanding waypoints and how to properly plan with them isn't just a technical skill, it's now a core legal requirement.
That's a really important point. It's truly moved from a Nice to have to an absolute must know.
I'm kidding.
Indeed, and that brings us seamlessly to another foundational pillar that seems simple on the surface but is actually a minefield of potential errors. Understanding altitude.
Altitude. Sounds simple enough.
You'd think so, but this might sound straightforward, but there's a critical difference between AGL, MSL, and what many drones frustratingly default to. Above takeoff point. Let's meticulously break each of those down.
Please do. Let's start with AGL.
Okay, AGL, or above ground level. This is your drone's height measured directly above the terrain that is immediately beneath it.
Right underneath it, okay.
Exactly. This value, as you can imagine, changes constantly as the ground rises and falls below you.
Dynamic.
Very dynamic. An easy analogy would be standing 2 meters above the floor in your house. Your height above that floor changes as you walk up or down stairs, or if the floor itself inclines.
Right, so AGL is very localized and dynamic, but then we have MSL, or mean sea level.
Yeah.
How does that differ, and why is it so important for flight planning?
MSL provides a global, consistent reference. It's your drone's height relative to a fixed average sea level, a standard used worldwide for aviation charts.
Global standard.
That's it. So instead of thinking about your floor, imagine standing 1040 meters above sea level in Calgary. That 1040-meter reference point is constant, regardless of the local terrain directly below you. It's a very different measurement that offers a stable, unmoving baseline.
Now, this next detail really blew my mind when we were prepping, and it speaks to the hidden complexities behind what we often assume is simple. You once described the Earth's true shape in relation to sea level as the bumpy potato. Can you expand on that?
Yes, the bumpy potato.
Why is this lumpiness more than just a fascinating tidbit? Why does it matter for our drones?
It's true. Even mean sea level isn't perfectly level everywhere due to gravitational variations across the Earth. The Earth's true gravity shape, the geoid, is quite irregular, hence the bumpy potato analogy. This slight irregularity helps us understand why the distinction between AGL and MSL is so profoundly important for precision. Historically, GNSS systems, when they were first being implemented, even disagreed on Mount Everest's height by several meters, depending on whether they referenced an idealized mathematical ellipsoid or the actual gravitational geoid.
Wow, several meters difference just based on the reference model.
Exactly. That's a real-world discrepancy that demonstrates how these subtle distinctions, which seem purely academic, can have tangible impacts on measurements. For drone pilots, especially those doing precise surveys or flying in areas with steep terrain changes, understanding that these reference surfaces aren't perfectly aligned is crucial for avoiding errors.
That's incredible. It highlights how many layers of complexity sit beneath what we think is just a simple altitude reading. And then there's the truly dangerous default, above takeoff point.
Oh, yes.
Many consumer and even prosumer drones default to this setting for things like their return to home or RTH altitude. This isn't just a subtle exam trap. It's a fundamental danger in real life, isn't it?
It absolutely is a huge danger. If you take off in a valley, for example, and your RTH altitude is set to, say, 100 meters above takeoff point, your drone could fly straight into a hill or a ridge when it tries to return.
Because it only knows its height relative to where it started, not the actual terrain around it.
Precisely. It's a catastrophic design flaw if you're not aware of it and planning around it. You might think you're safe, but you're operating with a dangerously false sense of security.
So the critical insight for you, the listener, the absolute non-negotiable here is this. Many autopilots, unless specifically configured for terrain follow mode, will interpret waypoint altitudes as MSL, or relative to the home point, not true AGL.
That's the key takeaway.
Failing to grasp this distinction has led to catastrophic consequences. There are documented early drone mishaps where operators assumed a 120-meter altitude setting meant AGL when the autopilot was actually storing and using MSL values.
And the result? Crashing directly into forest canopies or hillsides.
Terrible. Yeah. So you must always, without exception, confirm your drone's specific altitude reference before every single flight. It's like speaking the correct language to your aircraft.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You have to know what language your drone speaks when it comes to altitude.
Right. Speaking of global systems and precision, let's talk about GNSS, your global navigation satellite system, and all its quirks. What exactly is GNSS, and how does it relate to the GPS we all know?
Okay, good question. GNSS is actually the global umbrella term for all satellite navigation systems.
The big umbrella.
Exactly. It encompasses not just GPS, which is the system from the United States, but also Galileo from Europe, GLONASS from Russia, and BeiDou from China. So GPS is simply one constellation under this much larger international family.
Okay. It's like referring to all facial tissues as Kleenex, when Kleenex is just one specific brand.
That's a perfect analogy. Exactly that.
Okay.
And here's where it gets truly mind-bending, almost like a plot point from a science fiction novel. These GNSS satellites are, in a very real sense, time machines in the sky.
Time machines? How so?
They carry atomic clocks, accurate to a billionth of a second, without incredibly precise relativity corrections. Yes, that relativity. Einstein's theory.
Whoa, really? Einstein's relativity?
Yes. Without correcting for both special and general relativity, your standard GPS would drift by an astonishing 10 kilometers per day.
10 kilometers a day? That's huge.
Massive. This fascinating detail really underscores the incredible precision and the hidden complexity behind what appears to be a simple position fix on your drone controller. It's not just satellites. It's literally time-bending physics making your drone fly accurately.
That's an incredible thought. It makes you appreciate the engineering marvel that's silently guiding our drones. But this precision, while amazing, also brings us to a crucial distinction: accuracy versus integrity. What's the difference, and why should a drone pilot be deeply concerned about integrity, even if their drone is reporting high accuracy?
That's a fundamentally important question and often misunderstood. You can have high accuracy, for example. Your drone might report its position to within 1 meter, but still suffer from critical integrity issues.
Okay, define integrity for us then.
Integrity is essentially the probability that the information you're receiving is not misleading or hazardous. It's about the trustworthiness of the data.
Trustworthiness, got it.
As we'll delve into with some real-world scenarios, a drone can confidently display high accuracy, but actually be providing what we call hazardous misleading information, or HMI.
HMI, that sounds bad.
It is. This is a crucial distinction that truly smart operators understand. It's not just about how close the drone says it is to a target, but how sure you can be that the data it's presenting isn't actively lying to you, which can be even more dangerous than a complete signal loss.
More dangerous than losing the signal altogether.
In many cases, yes, because you think everything is fine. You're flying blind, but you don't know it.
Okay, now that we've firmly established those foundational pillars, waypoints, altitudes, and the incredible, yet sometimes quirky, GNSS, let's translate that theoretical knowledge into the practical.
Right, where the theory hits reality.
Exactly. This is where the rubber truly meets the road, by exploring some real-world scenarios where understanding these concepts profoundly impacts flight safety and success. The environment around your flight path isn't static. It's dynamic, and it can change in ways you might not expect.
Precisely. Let's start with scenarios involving dynamic terrain. Consider this. Scenario 1. Ridge crossing with waypoints, the altitude trap.
Okay, paint the picture.
Imagine you're tasked with inspecting a lengthy power line that traverses a significant ridge. You've meticulously planned a route at what you believe to be 120 meters above the power line. Sounds reasonable, right?
Seems standard.
But the trap.
And the problem here, as we discussed, is that your mission planner, by default, might store those waypoint altitudes as MSL.
In sea level.
But you, the pilot, are still thinking in terms of AGL above ground level.
Let's say that ridge is 150 meters above the valley floor where you took off. If your drone is flying at 120 meters MSL, referenced from sea level, and the ridge itself sits at 150 meters MSL above the valley floor's nadim, your drone is not 120 meters above the ridge.
No.
It's actually flying straight into it, 40 meters below the peak in this example.
Yikes. That's a classic gotcha question on exams. But in the real world, it's a disaster in the making.
Absolutely. The immediate solution is critical. Before flight, you must manually adjust your waypoints to reflect the MSL elevation of the terrain, plus your desired 120-meter buffer.
So you calculate the ridge's MSL height and add 120 to that.
Exactly. A best practice is to add a gate waypoint well before the ridge, specifically forcing a climb well in advance of the crossing, so it's not a last-minute maneuver.
Smart. Give room to climb.
Right. And crucially, you also need to verify that your return to home, or RTH altitude, is set high enough to clear that ridge safely while simultaneously staying below your authorized airspace ceilings.
So the RTH needs to be safe and legal.
Always. This scenario perfectly illustrates how the MSL versus AGL distinction isn't just academic. It's about preventing catastrophic collisions.
That's a chilling reminder.
Yeah.
Let's pivot to another common scenario. Scenario 2. Urban fringe. Mapping the moving obstacle challenge.
Yeah.
You're on a multi-day project mapping a construction site on the ever-expanding edge of Calgary. There are tall cranes, and they're being moved daily.
Dynamic environment.
Very. Your autopilot, let's assume, lacks sophisticated terrain-following capabilities. Your waypoints are set at a seemingly safe 80 meters MSL, but overnight, a new crane has been erected that extends to 100 meters AGL.
Right. The problem here is multi-layered. Firstly, your digital elevation model, or DEM, which provides the terrain data, it's likely outdated. It won't show that brand new crane.
Maps can't keep up in real time.
Exactly. Secondly, without true terrain following, your drone won't automatically detect and avoid these new dynamic obstacles. Cranes, new buildings, even rapidly growing trees, they don't magically appear in the latest maps the moment they change.
So what's your immediate course of action? How do you handle that?
Always check NOTAM's notice to Air Missions Daily for any temporary obstacles or airspace restrictions. Cranes over a certain height often require NOTAMs.
Okay, step 1.
Step 1. Then you need to proactively increase your emission altitude buffer, perhaps to 150 meters MSL in this case, just to create a safer margin above any potential unknowns.
Build in more safety room.
Right. You might even need to add stepped waypoints, creating a sort of invisible staircase in your flight plan to ensure safe clearance without breaching any controlled airspace above your operational area.
Ah, interesting workaround.
A crucial point to remember here, and this applies everywhere, is that terrain grows.
Terrain grows. Good one.
Trees grow taller, and construction cranes appear out of nowhere. A 30-meter tree can easily become a 35-meter obstacle in just a few years, quietly creeping into your flight path. Always add those buffers. Never assume the map is perfect truth.
Excellent point. So, we've talked about physical obstacles, but what about the invisible threats, those moments when our seemingly trusty GNSS signals can actually lie or fail us? Let's look at scenario 3. Solar storm survey, cosmic interference.
Ooh, space weather.
Exactly. You're planning a critical survey flight in northern Alberta, and a geomagnetic storm with a KP index of 7 is forecast. What does that mean?
Okay, KP7, that's a significant storm. The immediate problem is that during a geomagnetic storm, GNSS accuracy and integrity can seriously degrade.
How so?
Your RTK corrections, which provide that highly prized centimeter-level precision, might drop entirely due to ionospheric disturbances affecting the satellite signal paths. The upper atmosphere gets stirred up.
So the signals get messed up coming through the ionosphere.
Exactly. This is where our time machines in the sky become vulnerable to the very solar activity that helps power our planet.
That's a fascinating and potentially dangerous interaction.
Yeah.
What measures do you take to mitigate this cosmic interference?
You need to be prepared. Set stricter abort criteria in your flight plan before you fly. Like what?
This might include requiring a higher minimum number of satellites in view, say 8 or 9 instead of 6, and ensuring your position dilution of precision, or PDOP, remains less than 4, basically demanding a stronger, more stable signal lock.
Tighter tolerances.
Yes. You should also probably shorten your route legs, meaning you fly shorter segments between waypoints and reduce your reliance on RTK-only precision. Don't bank the mission entirely on RTK staying locked.
Have a fallback.
Absolutely. And crucially, always save raw GNSS logs for post-process kinematic, or PPK, correction as a backup.
PPK, explain that quickly.
PPK means you record the raw satellite data during the flight, and also from a ground base station. Later, back in the office, you process it together to get high accuracy, even if the real-time RTK link dropped.
Ah, a post-flight fix. Very useful. Invaluable as a backup. And this specific scenario, by the way, is actually something Transport Canada loves to test on. They want to ensure, you know, how environmental factors like solar storms specifically affect GNSS, particularly in high-latitude operations like those common in northern Canada, where the effects are stronger.
Good tip for exam takers. That's excellent advice. What about man-made interference in more urban settings? Scenario 4. No, wait, that was scenario 9 in the outline. Multipath in a city canyon. The hazard of misleading information.
Ah, yes, the urban canyon, classic problem.
You're mapping downtown rooftops in Calgary, and your GNSS is showing a fantastic 1-meter accuracy, which sounds great.
Sounds perfect.
But your post-flight logs occasionally reveal abrupt 20-meter position jumps. What's going on there?
This is a textbook example of multipath reflections. Signals from GNSS satellites are bouncing off tall, reflective surfaces like glass towers in a city canyon before they reach your drone.
Bouncing signals confuse the receiver.
Exactly. These reflected signals, when received by your drone's antenna along with the direct signals, create that hazardous misleading information, or HMI we talked about.
HMI again.
Right. Your drone thinks it's receiving accurate data and reporting high accuracy, but it's actually getting false data from those bounced signals that can lead to significant sudden shifts in its calculated position.
And like you said, that's scary because the drone thinks it's accurate.
Precisely. This situation is, in many ways, scarier than a complete loss of signal because you're completely unaware of the deception happening in real time. You're flying based on bad data.
That sounds incredibly dangerous. How do you combat a scenario where your drone is essentially lying to you?
It takes careful planning and setup. The first step is often to choose your takeoff and landing point carefully. Move it away from those highly reflective surfaces if possible.
Reduce the initial multipath environment.
Yes. You should also set higher DOP thresholds and integrity gates in your mission planning software to flag potentially compromised signals. Tell the system to be more skeptical of the data it's receiving in that environment.
Be more demanding of signal quality.
Right. Considering shorter flight legs, giving the system more opportunities to reevaluate its position and potentially discard bad fixes can also help. And again, often relying on PPK corrections as a fallback for the final data accuracy.
PPK saves the day again.
It often does in tricky environments. The profound takeaway here is that accuracy is meaningless without integrity. GNSS doesn't just lose signal in urban canyons. It can actively lie to you, making you believe you're in one place when, in reality, you could be 20 meters off your intended course.
Wow. Accuracy without integrity is dangerous. That's a huge distinction for safety. Let's shift our focus now to the legal and operational framework, specifically airspace and contingencies. First, we need to understand the airspace authority hierarchy. Who's ultimately in charge when it comes to flying in Canadian airspace.
Okay, this is fundamental. The definitive legal source for Canadian airspace designations and their vertical limits is the Designated Airspace Handbook, or DAH.
DAH, got it.
It's essentially the official rulebook published by NAV Canada, and it overrides everything else. If you're a pilot, this is your Bible for understanding what's allowed where, what the different classes of airspace mean, their dimensions.
Okay, so the DAH is paramount. Then we have NAV Drone, which has become an essential online tool, particularly for requesting and obtaining authorizations to fly in controlled airspace.
Huge development, NAV Drone.
How has it changed things?
It's significantly simplifying the authorization process and playing a vital role in integrating drones safely into Canadian airspace. You can use the portal to explore airspace, check restrictions, track weather, and even create and submit your operations directly for approval. It's a real game changer for many operators, moving away from cumbersome paper processes.
Much more streamlined.
Definitely.
And finally, rounding out the hierarchy, we have NOTAM's notice to air missions.
NOTAMs. Never fly without checking NOTAMs.
Why are they so critical?
These are mandatory checks you must perform before every single flight, ideally right before you launch. NOTAMs inform you of temporary hazards or restrictions.
Temporary being the key word.
Absolutely. Anything from active forest fires, police operations requiring airspace closure, temporary crane installations, or even local fireworks displays that create a hazard. Critically, NOTAMs override all pre-existing authorizations and charts.
They trump everything else.
They trump everything. That makes them paramount for day-of-flight planning. They represent the dynamic, real-time changes to airspace that might not be on any published chart yet.
Okay, let's put this hierarchy into practice. Scenario 5. Forest fire, temporary airspace dynamic no-go zones.
Right, a very common scenario, unfortunately.
You've meticulously planned a mission for tomorrow, DAH checked, NAV drone authorization received, but overnight, a NOTAM is issued. Restricted airspace for firefighting operations has been declared, and your carefully planned waypoints now fall directly inside that restriction. What's your protocol?
The problem is clear. Your pre-existing authorization, even though you received it, is now automatically invalid due to this temporary overriding restriction issued via NOTAM.
So the NOTAM cancels the authorization.
Immediately and automatically. The solution is straightforward but absolute. You must either cancel the mission or replan it entirely outside the restricted area defined in the NOTAM.
No exceptions.
None. Then, if you replan, you use NAV Drone to request an updated authorization for your new route, referencing the NOTAM, maybe. The absolute non-negotiable takeaway here is that NOTAMs override everything, even if your mission was authorized yesterday or last week. Claiming "I already had authorization" is never a valid excuse in the face of a current NOTAM. Safety and legality demand you respect that NOTAM.
That's a stark reminder of how quickly things can change in the air. What if you're already in the air and an emergency happens or a new restriction pops up? Let's look at scenario 11, Emergency Temporary Flight Restriction, TFR, mid-mission abort.
Right. Things can change even while you're flying.
So you're mid-mission, everything's going fine, but air traffic control, ATC, or maybe a public safety agency, issues a new restricted zone, perhaps for a police helicopter operation, searching for someone.
Yeah, a pop-up TFR.
And your pre-planned waypoints now intersect this dynamically restricted airspace that didn't exist when you took off.
Okay, this highlights the need for ongoing situational awareness. The problem is immediate conflict with restricted airspace. The solution: you must have a system for monitoring NOTAM updates or ATC communications during your mission. This might be via a visual observer who has a data link, or through your ground control station if it has that capability.
Real-time updates are crucial for BVLOS.
Absolutely critical. As soon as that restriction is known, you must abort the mission or reroute it immediately to remain clear. Dynamic hazards and ATC instructions always override your pre-planned flight path. There's no negotiation there.
Okay, another critical safety point. Now, let's revisit that return-to-home issue. Scenario 6, lost link in a valley, RTH gone wrong.
The RTH trap again.
You're flying a 10-kilometer corridor along a transmission line deep in a valley. Your RTH altitude, let's say, is set to a seemingly safe 400 feet AGL.
Seems reasonable, 400 feet above ground.
But the danger here is that the valley walls, the ridges on either side, are maybe 200 meters higher than your RTH altitude setting relative to the valley floor.
Exactly. If you lose your command and control, or C2, link to the drone, maybe you fly behind an obstacle or there's interference, it will initiate its pre-programmed return-to-home sequence.
And that sequence usually involves climbing to the RTH altitude first.
Right, which means climbing to that preset 400 feet AGL and flying straight into the rock face of the valley wall because it's higher than your RTH setting.
Ouch. This is a common curveball in drone exams, isn't it?
Yeah.
Testing that understanding of altitude references in complex terrain.
It is, and it's happened in real life.
Yeah.
There was even a famous lost link case, maybe not exactly the scenario, but where a drone was set to a maximum RTH altitude without cross-referencing airspace limits. It lost link, climbed dutifully to its RTH height, and flew straight into controlled airspace, busting the ceiling, triggering an air traffic control alert and investigation. All because the operator hadn't checked the airspace ceilings against their RTH setting.
That's a massive, potentially catastrophic error with serious legal repercussions. So what's the definitive solution for setting RTH altitude?
Before every flight, especially complex ones, you must analyze the terrain along your entire planned route and your likely RTH path. Set your RTH altitude to be safely above the highest terrain or obstacle along those paths, plus a minimum 30-meter buffer just for safety margin.
Highest point plus buffer. Got it. But that's not all.
No. Crucially, you must also ensure this carefully calculated RTH altitude does not exceed the airspace ceiling authorized in NAV drone or dictated by the DAH for that area.
So it has to be high enough for terrain, but low enough for airspace.
Exactly. The overarching lesson is that your RTH strategy must be both physically safe and legally compliant. Setting it too low means hitting obstacles. Setting it too high means busting controlled airspace. Both can lead to severe consequences. You have to find that safe, legal sweet spot.
A critical balancing act. Let's consider another factor. Energy. Scenario 10. Long leg power line patrol with win the battery budget.
Endurance planning. Very important for BVLOS.
You plan a 12-kilometer waypoint leg for a power line inspection. The forecast shows a steady 30-kilometer headwind on the outbound leg.
Okay, headwind outbound means?
You'll burn significantly more battery fighting that wind on the way out. You can't just assume a simple 50-50 split of battery usage for outbound and return legs. You might not have enough juice left for the return trip, especially if the wind is still there or shifts.
Precisely. This is a common planning error. The solution involves proper energy management. You need to calculate your drone's endurance with the wind factored in. Most good planning software can help with this.
Account for the wind's effect on ground speed and power consumption.
Yes. You might need to shorten that leg, add a midpoint waypoint, or crucially, identify a suitable contingency landing site somewhere along the route in case you start running low on battery faster than expected.
Plan B landing spots.
Essential for long flights. And always recheck your RTH energy margins. Will it have enough battery to fly back against that wind if it loses link halfway out? The key takeaway is that advanced missions require demonstrating robust energy planning, not just waypoint setting. Battery margins are absolutely critical at range, especially with wind.
Makes perfect sense.
Okay.
One more on wind. Scenario 4. Crosswind pipeline inspection, heading versus track.
Heading versus track, a subtle but important concept.
You're inspecting a pipeline corridor, nice straight line, but there's a strong 25-knot crosswind blowing across the corridor.
Okay.
If your autopilot is just flying by heading, meaning it keeps the drone's nose pointed along the pipeline corridor, what's the problem?
The problem is the crosswind will push the drone sideways off the corridor. Even though its nose is pointing the right way, its actual path over the ground, its track, will be drifting downwind.
And that ruins your data.
Completely. You'll break your required sensor overlap for mapping or inspection. You might miss parts of the pipeline entirely, and your data will be skewed.
So what's the fix?
The solution is to switch your autopilot, if it supports it, to track-based navigation. This tells the drone to adjust its heading, crabbing into the wind, so that its actual path over the ground follows the intended pipeline corridor precisely.
So it flies slightly sideways relative to its nose, but straight along the line.
Exactly. You might also need to increase your waypoint turn radii to account for the fact that your ground speed will be much higher on the downwind legs of your turns. And maybe add extra waypoints on long legs just to keep it tightly locked onto that track.
So the key takeaway.
Understanding the difference between heading, where the drone points, and track, its actual path over the ground after wind effects, and knowing why it matters is vital for accurate data collection in windy conditions. You need to command the drone based on track, not just heading.
Excellent clarification. Finally, let's look at one last invisible threat, one that can be extremely subtle but critical for precision work. Scenario 7. Datum mixed up the invisible shift.
Oh, the datum disaster. Yes. Sneaky one.
You've just received some critical survey coordinates from a client for a precision mapping job, maybe for construction layout. They're provided in NAD83 CSRS, which is common in Canadian surveying.
Right, NAD83 CSRS.
However, your mission planner software, which you use to input waypoints for the drone, defaults to WGS84, the standard used by GPS GNSS. What's the problem here? Seems like just different names for coordinates.
But they aren't just different names. This is a classic invisible shift problem, and it's a favorite of Transport Canada on exams because it catches so many people out. The issue is that while both are coordinate systems, NAD83 and WGS84 define the Earth's shape and origin slightly differently. They use different reference ellipsoids.
Different mathematical models of the Earth.
Essentially, yes. This means the coordinates you input, the numbers might look the same, will actually represent a slightly different physical location on the Earth, depending on which datum is used. If you input NAD83 numbers into a system expecting WGS84 without converting,
They'll be plotted in the wrong place.
Exactly. They'll be subtly shifted, typically by 1 to 2 meters in Canada. That might not sound like much, but it's more than enough to ruin a precision survey, render your data useless for critical infrastructure inspection where millimeters matter, or even cause clearance issues with nearby obstacles if you're working in a tight environment and thought you had 2 meters of clearance, but actually only have 0.5 meters.
Wow, a 1-2 meter error just from using the wrong datum setting. How do you prevent this invisible yet critical error from derailing your mission?
Vigilance and process. You must always, without fail, confirm the datum of all coordinates you receive and use before importing them into your mission planner or drone system.
Ask the client. Check the metadata.
Yes. If they're not in WGS84, which is the standard for GNSS in Canada and most modern drone systems, you must convert them properly using your planner's built-in tools or a dedicated GIS software before you create your waypoints.
Don't just type the numbers in. Convert first.
Convert first. The fundamental takeaway is simple but profound. A mismatched datum equals a wrong location. This subtle but critical point is something every advanced drone pilot, especially those doing any kind of survey or inspection work, needs to be acutely aware of. Check your datums.
All right, we've navigated the minefield of potential dangers and seen how easily things can go wrong if we're not meticulous. That was sobering.
It really highlights the need for careful planning.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now let's pivot our focus to how you truly master the craft. This section is about combining those foundational principles we discussed with the best practices that ensure your flights are not just reactive to problems, but proactively safe, efficient, and successful.
Exactly. Moving from avoiding disaster to achieving excellence. And that starts with robust waypoint mission design at range. This becomes your indispensable toolkit.
What's the core principle here?
The core principle is meticulous definition and validation. Define every 3D waypoint using a consistent datum, which in Canada, as we just hammered home, will almost always be WGS84 and a clear, validated altitude reference, MSL or AGL, and know which one.
Consistency and clarity.
Yes. Then you must validate the vertical profile of your entire route with current high-resolution terrain data. Don't just rely on the drone's default assumptions.
Check the path against the ground truth.
Precisely. And crucially, you need to actively deconflict your planned flight path with all controlled or restricted airspace using the DAH and the latest NOTAMs, and then obtain that specific NAV drone authorization as required for the airspace you intend to enter.
Plan, validate, deconflict, authorize.
That's the workflow.
Let's talk about those pro tips that really elevate an average pilot to an expert. What are some actionable strategies for optimizing waypoint missions at range?
Okay, first, develop a rigorous habit. Like, really enforce this discipline. Lock your coordinate format and datum, WGS84 typically, across all your tools, from your mission planner software to your drone's internal settings and any GIS software you use for post-processing. Consistency is absolutely key to avoiding those subtle errors.
Eliminate translation errors between tools.
Exactly. Secondly, for those longer flight legs, especially in windy conditions, if your autopilot supports it, make sure you're flying using track-based navigation or course over ground, as we discussed.
Fly the track, not just the heading.
Correct. This ensures your drone actually follows its intended path over the ground, correcting for crosswinds, rather than simply pointing its nose in a direction and drifting off course. Makes a huge difference for data quality and staying within corridors.
And the third tip.
And finally, don't underestimate the power of bait waypoints. These aren't strictly necessary for the path itself, but you strategically insert them before critical turns or terrain features like ridge crossing.
What do they achieve?
They force the drone to reach a specific point in space before initiating the next maneuver, like a climb or sharp turn. This ensures more predictable flight geometry and timely altitude changes. Also, related to turns, manually lengthen your turn radii in the planner, especially at higher speeds or in wind, to respect the drone's performance limits regarding bank angles and ground speed. Don't ask it to make impossibly sharp turns.
Smoother, more predictable transitions.
Exactly. These seemingly small details make an enormous difference in safety, predictability, and data quality during advanced operations.
Building on that, let's delve deeper into terrain, altitude references, and profiles. Beyond the basics, we've touched on AGL and MSL, but how do we apply this in a mastery context for planning?
Okay, the core principle here is that your altitude constraints, your minimum safe altitudes, should always be meticulously tied to validated DEM digital elevation model or DSM digital surface model sources. Don't just guess.
Use reliable elevation data.
Yes. And then, crucially, you need to build in generous margins. Margins for potential vertical error in the DEM itself, margins for expected GNSS and barometric altimeter variance, and margins for obstacle uncertainty, like those growing trees we mentioned.
Layered safety buffers.
Precisely.
Right.
Beyond that, for robust emergency planning, you should define minimum sector altitudes, or MSAs, for any planned contingency return to home corridors.
MSAs. Like in manned aviation.
Exactly the same concept. It's the lowest altitude that guarantees safe terrain clearance within a defined sector or along a defined escape route. This ensures you always have a safe, pre-vetted escape path if things go sideways and you need to arc-each unexpectedly.
Pre-planning the emergency escape. Smart. And what are some of the smart, practical ways a pilot can apply this understanding in their day-to-day operations?
Utilize the tools you have. Most good mission planning software includes terrain probes or pre-flight profile tools. Use them.
What do these tools do?
They allow you to draw your planned route on the map and then see a vertical cross-section showing your drone's planned altitude against the underlying terrain profile. It gives you invaluable visual confirmation of your clearances along the entire route before you even launch.
See the hills and valleys before you fly over them.
Exactly. Another practical tip, treat tree canopy growth as obstacle creep and proactively pad your minimum altitudes season to season, especially if you fly the same routes regularly. Nature doesn't stand still, and that 30-meter tree from last year might be 35 meters today, especially in faster-growing areas.
Factor in growth. Good point.
And if your specific drone platform lacks true sophisticated terrain-following capabilities, you can actually fake it pretty effectively.
Oh.
By creating a denser sequence of shorter waypoints, each with a manually calculated MSL altitude that approximates a constant AGL height over the changing terrain. It's more work in planning, but it achieves a similar result. It's about being resourceful, conservative, and safe with the tools you have.
That's ingenious. A manual terrain follow.
Are they?
Now let's circle back to the heart of navigation. GNSS accuracy, integrity, and continuity. Always question the signal. We briefly touched on integrity earlier, but why does it matter so much? Perhaps even more than raw accuracy.
Okay, this is so critical. The core principle is profound. Integrity, that probability that your information is not dangerously misleading, matters as much, if not significantly more in some situations, than mere accuracy.
Trustworthiness over precision, potentially.
In a sense, yes. You absolutely must build robust abort criteria into your operational plan based on real-time GNSS health factors. These should include things like DOP values, your configured elevation mask, the minimum number of satellites required, and the state of your RTK fix. For example, float versus fix.
Predefined rules for when the signal isn't good enough.
Exactly. Rules that say if these conditions aren't met, the mission pauses or aborts.
You mentioned DOP, or dilution of precision, earlier. Let's dig into that for a moment, because it sounds like a critical diagnostic tool for GNSS integrity. What is it measuring?
It truly is a key diagnostic. DOP in its various forms like PDOP position, HDOP horizontal, VDOP vertical, measures the geometric quality of the satellites your receiver is currently using to calculate its position.
Satellite layout in the sky.
Essentially, yes. Are they spread out nicely, or are they all clustered together in one part of the sky? A high PDOP, or position DOP, means poor satellite geometry. They might be clustered or mostly low on the horizon, and consequently low confidence or low integrity in your calculated position fix, even if the accuracy number looks okay.
So good geometry equals better trust.
Precisely. As a general rule of thumb, a PDOP greater than 6 indicates very poor geometry and should raise serious red flags. Many advanced operations set their abort criteria with a PDOP limit somewhere between 4 and 6. Below 4 is generally considered good to excellent.
So watch that PDOP value.
Definitely. This might sound like an obscure technical point, but it's incredibly testable on advanced exams and absolutely critical for understanding signal reliability in real time and knowing when to abort a mission before the position becomes untrustworthy.
Good to know. And when we talk about enhancing GNSS performance, we often hear terms like SBAS and RTK thrown around. Can you break down the difference and their respective roles in achieving better accuracy and integrity?
Absolutely. They both aim to improve standard GNSS, but work differently. SBA, or Satellite-Based Augmentation System, the most common one in North America, is RPAS, provides correction data transmitted from geostationary satellites.
Corrections from space.
Yes. These corrections account for errors like satellite clock drift and atmospheric delays. Using SBAS typically improves standard GNSS accuracy down to the meter level and, importantly, also significantly improves the integrity information provided.
So better accuracy and better trust. What about RTK?
Then there's RTK, or real-time kinematic. This is a different technique that uses a local base station receiver set up at a known surveyed point. This base station compares its known position to the position calculated from the satellites, determines the errors in real time, and transmits these corrections directly to the drone nearby, usually via radio link.
Local corrections, very precise.
Extremely precise. RTK allows the drone to achieve centimeter-level position accuracy in real time. Think of RTK as measuring twice with a laser instead of a tape measure. It offers that incredible, real-time, high-definition precision needed for tasks like surveying or landing on a small target.
Okay. SBAS for meter-level improvement and integrity, RTK for centimeter-level precision. Got it. And what are some advanced pro tips for maintaining GNSS integrity and continuity during complex missions using these tools or other techniques?
Okay, a few key ones. First, actively monitor space weather, specifically the KP index forecasts, as we discussed. Ionospheric storms triggered by high KP values can severely degrade GNSS performance, especially RTK locks, particularly at higher latitudes. Be prepared to adjust mission plans or timing.
Check the space weather forecast.
Yes. Second, set an appropriate elevation mask in your receiver settings, typically around 10 to 15 degrees above the horizon.
What does it do?
This tells your receiver to ignore signals from satellites that are very low on the horizon. These signals travel through more atmosphere, are more prone to distortion and multipath, and often contribute more noise than useful data, especially in mountainous terrain or urban canyons. Filtering them out improves overall solution quality.
Ignore the low, potentially junky signals.
Exactly. And third, critically, and I'll keep saying this, always log the raw GNSS data from both your drone, the rover, and your base station, if using RTK, for PPK or post-process kinematic correction.
The PPK backup plan.
It's your ultimate safety net for data quality. This allows you to go back after the mission and recalculate high-precision positions using sophisticated software, even if your real-time RTK fix dropped out intermittently during the flight due to obstructions or interference. It can often salvage missions that would otherwise be unusable. Always log for PPK.
Excellent practical advice. Next up, let's thoroughly cover airspace, authorizations, and charts. The layered landscape. This is where the legal framework meets the practical flight planning.
Absolutely essential. The core principle, especially now with the advent of the new Level 1 complex operations in Canada, is demonstrating unwavering compliance with the Canadian aviation regulations, specifically CARS Part 9.
What does that entail at a high level?
It means possessing the correct pilot certificate for the operation advanced in this context, maintaining a current flight review, having appropriate insurance, and operating strictly within the framework of a remotely piloted aircraft system operating certificate, or RPOC, for the organization. The RPOC outlines the company's procedures, training, and safety management system.
So, pilot cert, flight review, RPOC.
Foundational requirements, and adhering to any specific conditions laid out in your NAV drone flight authorization.
Okay. To keep all these essential tools and rules straight, particularly under the pressure of planning a complex mission, I love the DAN mnemonic you've shared. Can you remind us what that stands for?
Happy to. DAN is a simple but effective way to remember your essential airspace compliance cross-check sequence before every flight.
Okay, DAN.
D stands for the DAH, the Designated Airspace Handbook. You check this first to understand the legal class, the dimensions, and the operational rules for the airspace you plan to enter. Is it Class C, D, E, F? What are the vertical limits?
B for DAH, the rules.
Right. A is for authorization in NAV drone. Once you know the rules from the DAH, if you need permission to enter controlled airspace, like Class C, D, or F advisory, you obtain that specific flight authorization through the NAV drone portal. That's your permission slip.
A for authorization, the permission.
Exactly. And N is for NOTAMs, which you check last, ideally right before flight, via the NAV Canada CFPS, the Collaborative Flight Planning System, or integrated tools. NOTAMs give you those temporary hazards or restrictions that might have popped up since you got your authorization.
N for NOTAMs, the temporary changes.
DAN. Check the rules, get permission, check for last-minute changes. Following that sequence ensures you've covered all your legal and safety bases for airspace.
That's a great mnemonic. DAH, authorization, NOTAMs. And what about pro tips for truly mastering this layered airspace landscape beyond just the basics?
Okay, a couple of things. First, always carry the relevant VNC VFR navigation charts and VTA VFR terminal area charts for your operating area, either in digital format on a tablet or even as paper backups.
Why the charts if you have NAV drone?
The charts provide invaluable big-picture situational awareness and often show details like VFR reporting points, local landmarks, noise abatement procedures, or potential hazards that might not be immediately obvious in the standard NAV drone interface. They complement NAV drone. They don't replace it for broader awareness.
Context is key.
Yes. Also, get into the ironclad habit of always cross-checking your NAV drone map display and your authorization with the very latest NOTAMs just before launch. Dynamic hazards like temporary helicopter landing zones, police operations, or wildfire, temporary flight restrictions, TFRs, can appear very rapidly, and as we keep saying, will always override any pre-existing plan or authorization you might have. Complacency here is dangerous.
Continuous verification.
Until the moment you launch.
Finally, in this mastery section, we come to C2 link and contingency planning. Maintaining the conversation between you and your drone, especially when it's miles away, beyond visual line of sight. What's the core principle here?
At range, your C2 or command and control link margin is absolutely paramount. You need a reliable connection.
Link margin.
It's the difference between the signal strength you're receiving and the minimum signal strength the system needs to function reliably. You need a healthy margin for safety. So you must plan your flight altitudes and route to maintain a clear radial line of sight between your ground control station antennas and the drone, always considering the Fresnel zone.
The Fresnel zone. Briefly explain that.
The Fresnel zone isn't just the direct line between antennas. It's an ellipsoidal or rugby ball-shaped area around that direct line. For a strong signal, a significant portion of this zone, especially the central part, needs to be clear of obstructions like terrain, buildings, or even dense foliage. Blocking the Fresnel zone, even if the direct line is clear, can significantly degrade your C2 link.
So you need more than just visual line of sight for a good radio link.
Exactly. You need radio line of sight, considering the Fresnel zone. Also, as part of contingency planning, you need to meticulously pre-brief and validate your RTH profiles, ensuring they will safely clear all terrain and obstacles, and, crucially, remain within your authorized airspace, as we discussed with the RTH scenarios.
Planning the what-ifs for the C2 link.
Absolutely. And what about those vital failsafe protocols? How do you ensure your drone knows exactly what to do if that conversation, that C2 link, breaks down unexpectedly? This needs to be formally documented and practiced. Your organization's operations manual, the one associated with your RPOC, should clearly and concisely codify all lost link triggers, what conditions cause the RTH or other failsafe to activate, and the precise procedures and roles of your crew members, the pilot, the visual observers, etc., in such an event.
Everyone knows their job when the link drops.
Yes. Think of the lost link procedure as your drone's automatic pre-programmed safety response, like the emergency brake and autopilot in one. It needs to be meticulously planned based on the specific mission and terrain, thoroughly understood by the entire crew, and ideally practiced through simulations or controlled tests. It's not just a setting you click, it's a safety-critical system.
We've covered a remarkable amount of ground on what it takes to fly drones safely and effectively right now. That was quite the deep dive into current best practices.
A lot to consider, for sure.
But it's equally fascinating, I think, to understand how we got here, and perhaps even more exciting, where we're potentially going. Let's take a brief journey through the history of drone navigation, specifically in Canada, to set the stage.
Absolutely. It provides important context. The foundational roots of drone navigation, particularly concepts like waypoints and the critical distinction between altitude references like AGL versus MSL, actually began, as we touched on, way back in manned flight.
Right. Inherited from traditional aviation.
Exactly. The entire focus for centuries was on ensuring safe obstacle clearance and maintaining standardized separation between aircraft. This inherently required a universal, unambiguous reference point for altitude, which became mean sea level for charting and traffic separation. So, in essence, drones are building upon centuries of established aviation knowledge and safety principles when they use these concepts.
And what was the landscape like specifically for drone operators in Canada in the period leading up to the more modern regulations we have now, say pre-2019?
Okay, in the pre-2019 era for drones in Canada, most operations that went beyond visual line of sight, or BVLOS, required a Special Flight Operations Certificate, an SFOC.
The SFOC era.
Yes. This was essentially a very detailed case-by-case approval process managed by Transport Canada. It involved extensive risk assessments, operational plans, and often specific demonstrations. This meant that long-range, complex navigation using waypoints for BVLOS was largely the domain of government agencies, researchers, or very large commercial entities with the significant resources needed to pursue and manage these complex SFOC approvals. So, not really accessible to smaller operators or for routine work.
Generally not, no. It was a high bar to clear.
Then came 2019, a pretty significant year with the introduction of the current CARS Part 9X regulations. How did that change the game for drone pilots in Canada?
2019 marked a major step forward in standardizing things. Canada formalized the distinction between basic and advanced pilot certificates, creating clearer categories based on operational risk and proximity to people. This definitely created a clearer pathway for operators.
A more structured system.
Yes. However, even with these new certificates, true BVLOS and long-range missions still predominantly required that complex SFOC process on top of the advanced certificate. The primary focus of the standard CARS Part 9X regulations remained firmly on visual line of sight, or VLOS, operations within relatively close proximity to the pilot. So while it was definite progress, the door to widespread advanced long-range operations was still largely closed for most. Okay, so 2019 set the stage, but didn't fully open the BVLOS door. But, as we know, technology and applications move incredibly fast. What happened in the subsequent years, say between 2020 and 2024, that really pushed the envelope and highlighted the need for further change.
Yeah, this period saw an absolute explosion in drone applications across Canada. We're talking large-scale mapping projects, linear infrastructure inspections, pipelines, power lines, precision agriculture, environmental monitoring, deliveries in remote areas. The list goes on.
Drones became much more capable and common.
Exactly. This rapid growth naturally pushed operators and even regulators to accept waypoint navigation as an increasingly normal, even indispensable mode of operation, even if still technically under SFOCs for BVLOS. However, during this very period of rapid adoption, we also saw a worrying trend emerge in safety data and incident reports.
Growing pains.
You could call it that. A significant number of safety incidents started highlighting recurring issues directly related to these more complex operations. Common themes included that persistent misunderstanding of AGL versus MSL leading to terrain collisions.
Still a problem.
Still a problem. Those insidious GNSS multipath errors causing position inaccuracies in urban or complex environments.
The HMI issue.
Right. And worryingly, return-to-home procedures that were improperly planned and resulted in drones unexpectedly busting into controlled airspace. Yeah. These incidents profoundly underscored the urgent need for more robust, specific regulatory frameworks to address the unique challenges and risks of these advanced operational complexities beyond just the basic VLOS rules.
The system needed to catch up with the technology and operational reality.
Precisely.
Which brings us to what you've called the absolute game changer, the upcoming 2025 regulations, specifically the ones formerly known as SOR 2025-70 in the Canada Gazette, and the introduction of Level 1 complex operations. Why is this such a monumental shift for Canadian drone pilots?
This is truly monumental. It's arguably the biggest change since 2019. Canada is introducing this category called Level 1 complex operations. This represents the first standardized, regulated framework for conducting lower-risk BVLOS operations without requiring a bespoke one-off SFOC each time.
Wow, SFOC-free BVLOS.
For certain lower-risk scenarios defined in the regulation, yes, this is a massive opening. It essentially democratizes access to these kinds of advanced operations, making them potentially accessible to a far broader range of qualified operators and businesses across the country, provided they meet the requirements.
That's huge. So if I'm a pilot out there or running a drone service company looking to take advantage of this new framework, what does this mean for my skills and required knowledge?
Okay, here's where it gets truly impactful for you, the individual pilot and the operating organization. This new framework formally establishes navigation at range as a core competency that needs to be demonstrated.
A required skill, not just a nice to have.
Exactly. That means intricate concepts like meticulous waypoint planning, performing rigorous GNSS integrity checks before and during flight, doing detailed terrain clearance analysis, understanding datums, and obtaining the correct airspace authorizations through tools like NAV Drone are no longer just specialized knowledge for a select few SFOC holders. They are now fundamental skills required to legally operate under this new Level 1 complex category.
The bar is being raised for this type of operation.
Significantly raised, yes.
And this change isn't just about general knowledge recommendations, is it? It's leading to specific formal certification requirements.
Precisely. This isn't just guidance, it's regulation. This new framework has necessitated updated knowledge standards for pilots wanting to operate at this level. These are specifically outlined in a new Transport Canada publication, TP 15530, which details the knowledge requirements for RPAS operations in complex environments.
TP 15530.
And it has also driven updates to the flight review requirements for advanced pilots, now detailed under Standard 921 in the CAR standards. This officially designates all these advanced navigation topics we've been discussing today as exam-worthy and essential for demonstrating the required competency for Level 1 complex operations.
So, pilots will need to pass exams and flight reviews covering this material.
That's the structure, yes. Along with operating under an RPOC that has procedures covering these complex operations.
Okay, so what's the bottom line here for our listeners? Why does this transition matter so deeply to them, whether they plan on BVLOS or not?
The bottom line is this: mastering waypoint missions, conducting thorough terrain analysis, deeply understanding GNSS integrity, and navigating the airspace authorization process is no longer just for those highly specialized SFOC holders doing unique projects. It is now becoming mainstream knowledge required for conducting even lower-risk BVLOS operations under this new standardized framework.
It's the new standard for advanced flight.
It effectively is. This significantly raises the bar for all advanced drone pilots in Canada, requiring a deeper level of technical understanding and planning discipline. But Crucially, on the flip side, it also offers unprecedented new opportunities for growth, innovation, and taking on more complex, valuable, and impactful missions that were previously out of reach for many due to the SFOC hurdle. It's truly opening a new era for advanced drone operations in Canada.
A higher bar, but also wider opportunities. Sounds exciting. And speaking of new eras, let's gaze into the crystal ball. The future of drone operations, as you sometimes describe it, sounds potentially cooler than sci-fi. What can we realistically expect in the next 5 years or so, say, looking towards a 2030 horizon?
Okay, looking ahead just a bit, in the short to medium term, say the next 5 years, we can anticipate a significant continued increase in automation and onboard intelligence.
Smarter drones.
Definitely. Expect autopilots to increasingly integrate real-time terrain following capabilities, not just based on preloaded DEMs, but potentially using data fused from high-resolution DEMs, onboard LiDAR scanners, or even compact radar systems. This would make low-altitude terrain navigation much more robust and autonomous.
That would certainly make things safer, especially in complex terrain. What about our current reliance on GNSS? Will that change or evolve?
I think we'll see diversification. GNSS will remain primary, but it will increasingly be augmented with or have backups from alternative navigation systems, often called APNT, Assured Positioning, Navigation, and Timing.
Alternatives to satellites.
Yes. Canada, like other countries, is actively studying and investing in backups for GNSS, especially given vulnerability concerns. Things like modernized LRAN, an enhanced version of the old long-range radio navigation system, are being looked at. Also, vision-based navigation, where the drone uses cameras and AI to recognize landmarks and terrain features to determine its position.
Like navigating by sight.
Exactly, but automated. And potentially even advanced positioning using 5G cellular signals in areas where that's available. This layering of navigation sources will add crucial redundancy and capability, ensuring drones can navigate safely and accurately even if GNSS signals are temporarily degraded, jammed, or unavailable.
More resilience. Makes sense. And what about airspace management? How will NAV drone and the broader system evolve?
We're definitely moving towards more dynamic airspace integration through what's broadly termed unmanned traffic management, or UTM. NAV drone, which we discussed earlier as an authorization tool, is expected to evolve into a more comprehensive UTM system service provider platform.
What would that look like?
Imagine a system where your planned Waypoint missions are submitted digitally and then automatically deconflicted in near real time with other registered drone traffic, and potentially even coordinated with traditional air traffic control for manned aircraft. Think of it as creating transparent, managed, invisible highways in the sky for drones, all coordinated seamlessly through a digital system.
Wow, automated air traffic control for drones.
That's the vision, yes, to enable safe, large-scale integration.
And from a safety and regulatory perspective, how might something like return-to-home logic evolve in this future?
I expect we'll see stricter requirements and potentially more sophisticated RTH logic being mandated or expected. Regulators might require, for instance, the definition of pre-vetted safe corridor RTH profiles within the UTM system itself. These profiles would be guaranteed not to bust airspace ceilings or inadvertently enter restricted zones during a lost link event. It's all about building an even higher level of automated safety directly into the system from the ground up, making those critical RTH decisions virtually foolproof.
Embedding safety deeper into the automation.
Exactly, reducing reliance on perfect pilot setup every time.
Looking further out now, into the longer-term future, what are some of the truly visionary possibilities for drone navigation that might seem like science fiction today?
The possibilities are truly profound when you look out 10, 20 years. Imagine widespread AI-assisted navigation becoming standard.
AI pilots.
Not quite replacing the pilot's responsibility, but enhancing capability dramatically. Drones won't just blindly follow pre-programmed waypoints. They'll have the onboard intelligence to dynamically reroute themselves in real time around newly detected obstacles, like birds or other drones, deteriorating weather patterns or pop-up air traffic, all using sophisticated artificial intelligence algorithms. And they'll do this while autonomously ensuring they remain within their approved airspace corridors and comply with operational rules.
That's a significant leap beyond just following the breadcrumbs. What else might we see in this further future?
We could realistically see the establishment of integrated, dedicated, crewless aircraft corridors, true BVLOS highways in the sky, spanning significant distances, especially in lower density airspace initially. These would operate around the clock, built upon a robust, multi-layered technological foundation of reliable GNSS, widespread adoption of ADS-B or similarly electronic conspicuity systems for drones, and certified onboard detect and avoid systems. It's envisioning an entire integrated transportation ecosystem for autonomous aerial vehicles.
A whole new infrastructure layer.
Potentially, yes. And with all this evolution in technology and operations, the very nature of pilot training and regulation will also inevitably have to shift. Instead of exams focusing heavily on, say, rote memorization like, do you know all the airspace classes in the DAH? They might evolve towards assessing higher-level skills like, can you effectively manage your fleet of autonomous drones operating within a complex digital UTM corridor? Or how do you oversee and intervene when the AI encounters an unexpected situation? It's a fascinating, rapidly approaching future that will demand human ingenuity, oversight, and critical thinking in entirely new ways, working with the automation, not just operating it.
Wow. We've journeyed from the fundamental definitions all the way to a glimpse into a potentially sci-fi-like future. That was quite the arc.
Covered a lot of ground, didn't we?
We certainly did. Now, let's bring it all back down to earth and solidify your knowledge, listener, with some practical tips and takeaways. Let's start by reinforcing those subtle but critical exam traps we've discussed throughout. Getting these wrong can mean the difference between passing and failing an advanced exam, and more importantly, between a safe flight and a potentially dangerous one in the real world.
Indeed. These are the points that often trip people up. The first trap to always be vigilant about is that default settings are dangerous.
The defaults aren't always safe.
Rarely are for complex flights. Remember that many drones default to above takeoff point for altitude reference, particularly for RTH, which, as we've seen repeatedly, is incredibly risky in varied terrain. Never assume the default is appropriate, always verify and set it deliberately based on your mission profile and terrain analysis.
Okay, check defaults. What's trap number 2?
Second, regarding the airspace authority hierarchy, remember the pecking order. The Designated Airspace Handbook, the DAH, is the definitive legal source for Canadian airspace classifications and rules. It's not just the charts you might use or the apps on your phone. The DAH is the ultimate legal authority. Know it, respect it.
DAH is king. And the third trap.
And finally, remember that temporary hazards override everything. A NOTAM published just minutes before your planned launch, indicating a new restriction or hazard in your operating area, absolutely cancels or requires modification of your mission, regardless of any prior authorization you might have received. But I got my NAV drone approval yesterday is never, ever a valid excuse if a new NOTAM conflicts with it.
NOTAMs are absolute. Got it. Those are critical reminders. Now, let's get you truly exam ready with a quick mental checklist. Listener, ask yourself these questions honestly.
Okay, quiz time.
Do you confidently know the practical difference between AGL, MSL, and height above takeoff point, and when each is relevant?
Crucial first step.
Can you list, right now, the 3 essential information sources you must check, in the correct order, before every advanced flight? DAH, NAV drone authorization, and NOTAMs.
The DAN check.
Do you know the immediate practical actions you need to take if your GNSS signal integrity degrades significantly mid-flight, for example, during a solar storm, checking TAP index PDP, or due to heavy multipath, monitoring position jumps, maybe switching modes?
What's your plan B for bad signal?
Are you thoroughly familiar with the key elements of the new 2025 Level 1 complex framework in Canada, including the need for TP 15530 knowledge, meeting standard 921 flight review standards, and operating within an RPOC environment?
Understanding the new rules of the game.
And finally, perhaps most importantly, do you deeply understand why your planned return to home, RTH altitude and path, must be both safely clear of all terrain and obstacles and legally remain within your authorized airspace limits? Could you articulate how to ensure both?
The RTH safety and legality check.
If you can confidently answer yes to all of those questions, you're in a fantastic position not just for an exam, but for conducting safer, real-world operations.
That's a solid foundation. Now, to help you make this crucial knowledge truly stick, especially the more technical bits, we've developed some useful memory aids and mnemonics. Sometimes a little hook helps lodge it in your brain.
Let's hear them.
Okay, for the often confused altitude references, AGL versus MSL, think simply. Floor versus ocean. AGL is your height above the local floor beneath you. MSL is your height above the global ocean average.
Floor versus ocean. Nice.
For waypoints, remember they are your digital breadcrumbs that guide your drone's automated path.
The crumbs, got it.
For GNSS to appreciate its complexity, always consider time travel because of those incredible relativity corrections needed for it to even work accurately.
Time travel. Cool.
We can categorize the main sources of GNSS error that degrade accuracy and integrity with the acronym GRAMS. G for geometry, poor satellite layout, high DOP. R for refraction, atmospheric delays. A for antenna, placement quality. M for multipath, signal reflections. And S for satellite issues, clock or orbit errors. GRAMS.
GRMS for GNSS errors.
Okay. For a quick altitude sanity check before confirming your flight plan, remember, tag me. Is it using terrain follow? Is it referencing AGL or the bumpy geoid? Is it using standard MSL, or is it maybe referencing the mathematical ellipsoid? Tag me helps you question the altitude source.
Tag me. Terrain, AGL, geoid, MSL, ellipsoid. Clever.
For your essential pre-launch checklist when operating at range, think fence. Failsafe first, set correctly. Elevations along the route profiled and checked. NOTAMs current and reviewed. Clearance buffers adequate. Emissions RF link performance verified. Fence check before you go.
Fence check. Fail-safe, elevations, NOTAMs, clearance, emissions. I like it.
And finally, for that crucial airspace compliance cross-check sequence we talked about, remember, Dan, check the DAH first for class limits, then get your authorization in NAV drone, then check current NOTAMs via CFPS, DAN.
Dan for airspace. Great. These little hooks can make recalling complex information much easier, especially when you're planning under pressure or during a flight review.
Hope they help.
Those mnemonics are fantastic for retention. Let's wrap up this section now with the absolute non-negotiables, what you must know and do to operate safely and legally in advanced drone missions. These are the bedrock principles.
Okay, the must-dos. First, altitude reference clarity. Always, always know, verify, and confirm whether your autopilot is using AGL, MSL, terrain follow, or height above takeoff for every single waypoint and for your RTH setting in your mission plan. No assumptions allowed.
Know your altitude language.
Yes. Second, rigorous airspace planning. Plan your missions methodically using the DAH, getting NAV drone authorization, and checking NOTAMs, specifically in that DAN order of authority. One overrides the other. Follow the process every time.
DAN discipline.
Third, coordinate system consistency. Lock your datum, almost always WGS84 for GNSS work, and your coordinate format, e.g. decimal degrees versus degrees minute seconds, across all your mission planning tools, your drone settings, and any post-processing software to avoid those critical, invisible coordinate shift errors.
Consistency prevents shifts.
Fourth, proactive GNSS integrity management. Don't just hope for a good signal. Set clear integrity gates in your planning like minimum satellites required, maximum acceptable DOP values required, RTK fixed state, AG fixed only, and establish robust, objective abort criteria if those gates aren't met. And one last time, always log raw GNSS data for PPK as your ultimate data backup.
Manage integrity, don't just assume it, and log PPK.
Fifth, comprehensive RTH safety and legality. Your planned return-to-home corridors and altitudes must be meticulously verified to clear all potential terrain and obstacles along the path, and simultaneously remain legally within your maximum authorized airspace ceiling. Both conditions must be met.
Safe and legal RTH.
And finally, sixth, regarding the 2025 framework compliance. If you intend to operate under the new Level 1 complex rules, ensure you possess the correct advanced pilot certificate with the updated knowledge, meeting TP 15530, maintain a current flight review, meeting standard 921, and operate consistently within an approved RPOC environment that has procedures addressing these complex operations.
Meet the new regulatory standard.
Absolutely. These 6 points, if consistently applied, form the bedrock of safe, legal, and professional advanced drone operations in Canada moving forward. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. We've certainly journeyed through the intricate and sometimes, frankly, daunting world of advanced drone navigation today.
Yeah.
It feels like we've covered a semester's worth of material.
It's a complex topic with many layers.
Definitely. From understanding the fundamental definitions of waypoints and those critical altitude references, to navigating the dynamic challenges of weather, the ever-evolving airspace rules, and the crucial subtle nuances of GNSS integrity. It really is a lot to absorb.
It is.
But what I think we've truly underscored today is how meticulous planning, A deep functional understanding of the regulations and the vital foresight to anticipate every possible failure mode are not just, optional best practices.
No, not optional at all.
They are absolute necessities for safe and legal operations in this rapidly advancing field. The stakes are just too high for guesswork.
Couldn't agree more. And I hope this deep dive wasn't just about memorizing facts or regulations for people. The real goal was about equipping you, the listener, with the mindset to think like a truly professional pilot.
Thinking like a pilot.
Yes, it's about being able to critically analyze scenarios before they happen, anticipate potential risks before they materialize, question your assumptions, question your data, and ultimately make informed, conservative decisions that ensure your drone operates with unwavering safety and legality every single time it flies.
And that mindset is crucial now more than ever, right?
Absolutely. As the regulatory landscape shifts dramatically with this exciting new Level 1 complex framework opening up BEVIL OS possibilities, this depth of knowledge positions you not just to pass an exam, but to genuinely master the nuanced, complex, and actually incredibly rewarding world of advanced drone operations. It allows you to take advantage of these new opportunities, but to do so responsibly.
Well said. And as we gaze into that future we discussed, potentially filled with autonomous drone highways, AI-driven rerouting, and advanced GNSS alternatives, a really profound question starts to emerge, I think. It's not merely about what your increasingly sophisticated drone can technically do. The question becomes, what must you, the human pilot in command or operator overseeing the system, fundamentally understand, critically assess, and responsibly manage to ensure these powerful machines operate with unwavering safety, legality, and integrity in an increasingly crowded and dynamic sky?
That's a great point. The human element remains critical.
How will your human critical thinking skills, your judgment, your oversight, need to adapt and evolve as the machines themselves become smarter and vastly more capable? That, I think, is something truly worth pondering as we look ahead to the future of the skies.
A perfect thought to end on. The future is exciting, but the responsibility remains squarely on us. That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.